Welcome back to Narrative Network. Imagine spending most of your life with a quiet, empty house, carrying the memories of a best friend you lost years ago. Now, picture an unexpected knock on your door one winter day. A pair of young twins standing there, claiming they're connected to a past you thought was long buried. They're here with a confession about their late mother that will change your life forever. In this heartfelt and emotional story, two young twins journey to a small town to unlock the secrets of their mother's past and uncover a family connection that will surprise them and bring new light to an elderly woman's life. As they piece together memories and reveal truths, you'll feel the power of love, loss, and family like never before. Stay with us until the end to see how a single confession can heal old wounds and create a brand new family in the most unexpected way. Make sure to comment your thoughts and let us know if you've ever had a life-changing reunion like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that will touch your heart. In a quiet, almost forgotten corner of a small town, there was an old woman named Margaret Thompson. She was in her late 80s, with silver hair that shone in the morning sunlight and wise, deep-set eyes that held countless stories. Margaret lived alone in her creaky, worn-down Victorian home, a house filled with dusty mementos, reminders of a life long lived. The townspeople rarely saw her, except during her brief outings to the local grocery store or church. Most of them didn't know her story, and in time, they had stopped asking. One winter afternoon, as she was watering the plants in her small, cluttered living room, a knock sounded on her door, echoing through the empty house. Startled, Margaret put down her watering can and slowly walked over, feeling each ache in her bones, a reminder of the years that had worn her down. As she opened the door, she was surprised to see two young people standing on her doorstep. They were twins, clearly identical and young, about 15 or 16 years old. They had dark skin, curly hair, and wide, searching eyes. The boy was tall and gangly, with a nervous energy, while the girl had a calm, steady gaze and a quiet confidence. "Hello?" Margaret said, her voice softened by years of gentle aging. "Can I help you?" The girl stepped forward, clearing her throat. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson. My name is Layla, and this is my brother Aaron." She paused, almost as if gathering courage. "We were wondering if we could talk to you about something important. It might sound strange, but it's about family?" Margaret's brow furrowed, but she sensed an earnestness in the girl's eyes. She hadn't had visitors in years, and something about the twins' gaze stirred a curiosity in her. She nodded, motioning for them to come inside. The twins stepped into the house, taking in the warm, dimly lit rooms filled with old photographs and stacks of well-worn books. Margaret led them to the living room and gestured for them to sit on her floral print sofa, sinking into her own armchair across from them. "So what is this about family?" she asked, leaning forward slightly. The twins exchanged a look, and after a moment, Aaron spoke up, his voice a little shaky. We wanted to talk to you because we think you might know something about our mother." Margaret's heart gave a small jolt. She hadn't had children, hadn't been married for long. In fact, she had spent most of her life alone after her husband had passed. But there was something hauntingly familiar in the twins' faces, something she couldn't quite place. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Who are you looking for?" Layla pulled out an old photograph from her backpack and handed it to Margaret. Margaret's hand trembled as she took the photo, her gaze falling on a young woman with curly hair and bright, laughing eyes. The face brought back a rush of memories, of a friendship that had once been as deep as family, of a bond that had been broken long ago. "This is your mother?" Margaret whispered. Layla nodded. Her name was Grace. The memories flooded back, decades unraveling as if it had all been yesterday. Margaret had been best friends with Grace Johnson, a brilliant, kind-hearted woman who had once been like a sister to her. They had grown up together, inseparable through childhood and into their 20s. But life had taken them in different directions, and they had eventually lost touch. Margaret had always regretted not reaching out more, not being there when Grace had needed her. She had heard of Grace's passing some years ago, but had never imagined meeting her children. She was a remarkable woman, Margaret said, her voice choked with emotion. I'm sorry. I didn't know she had children. I wish I had known. The twins shared a glance, as if hesitant to continue, and then Layla spoke again, her voice soft but steady. We know our mom grew up here, but we never knew much about her past. She didn't talk much about her younger days, and we don't really know what happened between you two. But when she passed, we found letters she wrote to you, but they were never sent. Margaret's heart ached at the thought. She imagined Grace writing those letters, reaching out in her own way, even when life had separated them. A wave of sorrow washed over her, mingled with a deep, unspoken regret. I never got those letters, Margaret whispered, more to herself than to the twins. I wish I had. Your mother was like a sister to me. We were closer than family once. The room fell silent, each of them lost in their own thoughts. After a few moments, Margaret looked up at the twins, a question burning in her mind. Why did you come to me? She asked gently. What is it that you wanted to tell me? Aaron shifted uncomfortably, glancing down at his hands. He looked at Layla, who nodded encouragingly. We're here because we need to find out more about our mom's past, Aaron said, his voice barely a whisper. After she passed, we started hearing stories, whispers about how she was treated here, how people looked at her differently, because she was, well, different. And we needed to know if it was true. We needed to know if that was why she left. Margaret's heart broke at the pain in his voice. She had known, even back then, that Grace had felt out of place in their small, insular town, but she hadn't understood the depth of it, the way it must have weighed on her dear friend's heart. There were people here, Margaret said carefully, who didn't understand Grace's kindness, her strength. People who judged her, yes, but she had friends here, people who loved her dearly, people like me. The twins looked at each other, their eyes bright with unshed tears. She never felt like she belonged anywhere, Layla said softly. She was always restless, always moving from place to place. And we thought that maybe if we came here, we could understand her a little better. Maybe we could find out why she was always searching for a home. Margaret reached across the coffee table, placing her hand gently on Layla's. Your mother was a beautiful soul. She might have felt like she didn't belong here, but she left her mark on this place, on me. She changed my life. And I think maybe she wanted you to find a home here too. Aaron looked down, his shoulders slumping as if a weight had been lifted from them. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for remembering her. As the twins prepared to leave, Margaret stopped them, a spark of inspiration lighting her face. Why don't you stay for dinner? She suggested, a soft smile playing on her lips. I'd love to tell you more about your mother, about the girl I knew who was brave enough to stand out in a world that didn't always understand her. The twins exchanged a look, and then Aaron nodded, his face lighting up with a faint smile, and so they stayed, sharing stories over a warm meal in the old house that was filled with memories. Margaret spoke of Grace's laughter, her wild sense of adventure, the ways she had brightened up even the darkest days. The twins listened, their hearts filling with a new understanding of the mother they had loved, a mother they now knew more deeply through Margaret's memories. As the night wore on, Margaret felt a warmth in her heart that she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she felt as if Grace was there with them, her spirit alive in her children, in the love that bound them all. In the days that followed, the twins visited Margaret often, helping her with chores and listening to her stories. they began to feel a sense of belonging in the little town, a place they could finally call home. And Margaret, once a lonely old woman, found herself surrounded by the laughter and love she had thought she had lost forever. In their visits, Layla and Aaron found not only the history of their mother, but a new family. A family bound not by blood, but by love, and the memories of a woman who had changed all of their lives. And so, in a quiet town that had once held only memories of loneliness, a new family blossomed, bound together by stories, laughter, and the enduring legacy of a woman who had once dared to be different. Margaret, Layla, and Aaron found healing, each in their own way, and in doing so they breathed life back into a forgotten home, turning it into a place of love and belonging once more. As the winter months wore on, Margaret's house transformed from a dusty relic of the past into a lively haven filled with laughter, warmth, and togetherness. The twins came over almost every day, helping her dust off forgotten shelves, polish old furniture, and even repaint the walls. It was as if each brushstroke and each sweep of the broom was wiping away years of grief and solitude, replacing it with life and love. One crisp afternoon, as Margaret, Layla, and Aaron were sitting around the old kitchen table sipping tea, Margaret turned to the twins, her eyes thoughtful. There was a question that had been resting on her heart, a piece of the puzzle that still eluded her. "Did Grace ever tell you why she left this town?" Margaret asked, her voice soft, as if she were afraid to disturb the ghosts of the past. Layla and Aaron shared a look, and then Aaron nodded slowly. "She talked about it a little," Aaron said, choosing his words carefully. "She said this place was full of memories, good and bad. She said there were people here who loved her, but also people who didn't understand her. She always told us to be proud of who we are, but we could tell she carried something heavy inside her, something she didn't want to share." Margaret sighed, sadness clouding her gaze. She remembered the small-minded judgments, the whispers, the sideways glances that Grace had endured simply for being herself, for her radiant spirit and unrestrained kindness. "It was different back then," Margaret said, her voice carrying the weight of old memories. "People here weren't used to someone like your mother. Grace was too bright, too full of life, and they didn't know how to handle that. I suppose I didn't either back then. I was young, and I didn't always stand up for her the way I should have." Layla reached across the table, placing her hand over Margaret's. "You were her best friend," she said gently. "You're the one she wrote to, the one she wanted to remember her. That means something." Margaret looked down at their hands, feeling a tear slip down her cheek. She hadn't cried in years, but somehow, in that moment, with Grace's children sitting before her, she allowed herself to feel the sorrow, the regret, and the love she had buried so long ago. As spring began to melt away the remnants of winter, Margaret and the twins grew closer, their connection deepening into something profound and unbreakable. The townsfolk began to notice the twins, murmuring about the two young faces who had come to town to visit old Mrs. Thompson. Some were wary, recalling Grace's history and the pain it had left in the community, while others were curious, quietly welcoming the twins in their own small ways. One day, as they walked through the town together, Margaret leading the way, the twins felt the weight of eyes on them. Some people nodded politely, others looked away. It reminded Layla and Aaron of what their mother must have felt, the quiet but insistent sense of being an outsider. But with Margaret beside them, they walked with heads held high, feeling the strength of the bond they shared with her. The twins had brought new life, not only to Margaret, but to the town itself. They volunteered at the church, helped at the local grocery store, and even played soccer with the younger kids at the park. Their warmth and kindness gradually softened the hearts of the townsfolk, who began to see them as part of their community. It was as if, through the twins, Grace was being welcomed back to the place she had once left behind. One evening, as they sat by the fire in Margaret's living room, she pulled out a faded box from the corner, her hands trembling slightly. These are my memories of your mother," Margaret said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After she left, I couldn't bring myself to look at them. It was too painful, but I want you to have them." Inside the box were photographs, letters, and small trinkets, remnants of a friendship that had once been so strong. There were photos of a young Grace laughing by the river, notes she had written to Margaret during school, a small locket with a picture of the two of them inside. The twins sifted through each item, feeling as if they were piecing together fragments of a woman they had only partially known. In one photograph, Grace and Margaret were sitting on a hill, laughing as they looked into the distance, their faces alight with dreams and promises. Layla held the photo, staring at her mother's carefree smile, a smile she had rarely seen in her own life. "She was happy here," Layla said softly. In her own way, she was happy. Margaret nodded, a bittersweet smile on her face. She was? For a while, she truly was. As the weeks turned into months, a quiet transformation began to take hold in Margaret's heart. She found herself sharing parts of herself she had long hidden away, finding joy in small things she had forgotten. She baked cookies with Layla, taught Erin how to plant a garden, and spent long afternoons telling stories about her youth. For the first time in years, Margaret felt a sense of purpose, a reason to wake up each morning. One day, as they were working in the garden together, Margaret looked up at the twins, a thought coming to her. "I know you two came here to learn about your mother," she said, her voice tender. "But you've given me something too. You've given me back a piece of my heart, a piece I thought I'd lost forever." Layla smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "Your family, Margaret. We may have come here to find out about our mom, but we found you, and that means everything to us." They hugged her tightly, their arms wrapped around her frail shoulders, their hearts bound together by the love of a woman who had once brought them all together. The next autumn, on the anniversary of Grace's passing, the twins and Margaret held a small ceremony by the river where Margaret and Grace had spent so much time in their youth. They lit candles and set flowers adrift on the water, watching as they floated downstream, carrying with them the love and memories that would live on in their hearts. As they stood there, Margaret felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as if Grace were there with them, her spirit watching over them, smiling down on the family she had left behind. The twins held Margaret's hands, their faces turned toward the sky, feeling a connection that transcended time and distance. In the years that followed, Layla and Erin stayed in the town, visiting Margaret daily and becoming an inseparable part of her life. They built lives of their own, finding work, making friends, and slowly integrating into the community. Margaret became like a grandmother to them, her house a second home where they could always find warmth, wisdom, and a place to belong. And through it all, Margaret found that the emptiness she had once carried had been replaced with love. A love she had thought she had lost long ago, now rekindled in the lives of Grace's children. She spent her days surrounded by the laughter and warmth she had once only dreamed of. Her home filled with memories, both old and new. Each one a testament to the power of family, friendship, and the unbreakable bonds of love. As the years passed, Margaret grew older, her silver hair turning to white, her steps slower, but her spirit still bright. She would often sit on her porch, watching Layla and Erin laughing together, and feel the quiet joy of knowing that Grace's legacy lived on, not only in the memories they shared, but in the family they had created together. And so, in a small town where time seemed to stand still, Margaret Thompson's heart, once empty and alone, found new life in the love of two young souls who had come looking for answers and had found a family. The three of them, bound by memories and love, created a story of resilience, forgiveness, and the beauty of connection, a story that would be remembered long after they were gone, as an enduring legacy to a woman who had brought them all together. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more inspiring stories like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. And if you know someone who'd enjoy this story as much as you did, share it with them. See you in the next video. This version encourages likes, comments, and shares while expressing gratitude to boost engagement.